The official has been released on Viz, and to commemorate this new era and this fire chapter, we will be analyzing most of this chapter. The only part I won't get too in depth with is Blackbeard, but everything else, let's really dig in. The cover story, I didn't touch on it last time, but it seems to be Chiffon being arrested at the salon. This is nonsensical to me simply because you're a pirate and the wife of a very notorious pirate. These pleasantries are not for people like you, and it runs the risk of things like this happening. Other than that, the Marines there seem to be new and unknown. Hopefully we learn more about them in the future. One thing you guys should know about me, or you probably already do, is that I really like the Marines, because you guys do say I'm biased towards the admirals, but that's not the case. I just really like the Marines, but this isn't due to their beliefs or even how they normally handle things. I typically just enjoy rivalry, or rather strong opposition. Pirates are the focus of the story, so having a strong antagonistic force makes for great tension and moments. So on to 966, and due to the translations being from an unverified source, I was excited from the things I learned from the chapter, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a bit skeptical. What if these translations were very off? What if things are heavily misinterpreted? That fear quickly went away though when I thought of how we were normally depending on Jaimin's box or Manga Stream, RIP, and they weren't really official either. Plus I knew that when the Viz came out, it was another opportunity to see another perspective and then relay that information. So that's what we're doing here. One Piece chapter 966 revolved as expected around Whitebeard, Roger, and Oden. It was heavy speculation around whether or not the fight would be skipped or just seeing a clash, and it was as expected, a clash and a bit more than skipped. I really did enjoy this chapter, but after reading a few times, I started to feel a bit of disappointment because we didn't see more of this matchup. Also, there's probably no other time that we will have the opportunity to see a full-on fight between Roger and Whitebeard, so that hit me really heavy for a bit. Oden's nature that he himself stated he couldn't control was on full display in this chapter as he blitzed Roger's men, and that's when Rayleigh and Scopper stepped up. Roger's gag to want fights for himself if there's a new and strong opponent, as I mentioned in my review, is more like Goku rather than Luffy. Luffy will fight if need be, but it doesn't seem to be something he necessarily chases like Roger. And I'm not saying Roger always chases fights, but it seems to be a part of his nature. It seems like Roger, while being interested in the world, is also interested in different people and cultures. His exploration as a trailblazer is unmatched, as he was driven to find the last island of Raftel 13 years later, even after accomplishing things no other crew had. I guess that's why he was the Pirate King. He was truly one of a kind. The attack he used on Oden is called Divine Departure, which immediately overwhelmed Oden, and we know Oden, he's a powerful individual, as highlighted by Whitebeard when Oden first attacked him when Whitebeard showed up in Wano. But I think this also shows the difference in Whitebeard and Roger, as Oden blitzed the Roger pirates, but Roger didn't wait for him to attack. He got his strike in first. Roger is a man of action and pressure, while Whitebeard is more of a wait-and-see type while being a bit more complacent. The comparison of them as men will be relevant later in this video, as this translation provides some interesting context. One thing with the Viz translations that I've noticed, which isn't meant to be a slight, but if it is, fuck it. The dialogue is normally really formal or extremely hipster laden. Like this chapter after Oden gets sent back, he says, "I say, what was that?" And then he says, "I need to have a word with you." I mean, it's not really an issue, but something I just picked up on because Jaiminis and Manga Stream, specifically Jaiminis, kind of had a good balance between the characters and having them speak in a way which was more relatable, I guess. Also, the gap between Roger and Oden should be there as well as with Whitebeard and Oden, as he is fairly new to the outside world. So I view him as a raw talent, plus not in his prime as yet, in my opinion, so it makes sense for him to be blown away like that. However, he was ready to go right back at Roger and seemed to be okay. He only stopped because Whitebeard jumped in. And we can also highlight Whitebeard, even though he's complacent in nature and more of the wait and see type, for his family, he will jump in at a moment's notice. And we saw that at Marineford as well. In One Piece, judging fights from the first exchange can be very dangerous, but I'll go out on a limb here and say Roger got this one versus Oden. The clash between Roger and Whitebeard was nothing short of majestic. In the midst of trying to forget that these are two of the greatest pirates of all time, rather, the two greatest pirates of all time, let's focus on the Haki literally dripping from their swords before the clash, and then their blades not touching at all. So my thought on this is a mixture of advanced armament, which is Rio, and also advanced Conqueror's Haki. It's been building to this moment for a while based on what we saw with Zoro and his blade before the Haki, for lack of a better term, leaking off his blade, also what we saw Sentomaru do in Sabaody, and what we saw the Admirals do at Marineford. This seems like the proper next next step. But I hope we get more in regards to this before we leave Wano, as this is the land of the blade. But I do understand Roger and Whitebeard aren't in Wano, so this level probably won't be attained. I actually prefer the official translation here for the dialogue between the two after the clash, the two meaning Whitebeard and Roger, as they both told each other to drop their valuables and they laughed. It makes more sense as it adds to later in the chapter when the back and forth between the crews turned into a gift exchange as explained by Rayleigh. And in this chapter, Rayleigh was conspicuously missing, but I think I have a reason for that. And I've seen several comments asking whether or not this is a better showing for Whitebeard or Roger, as the fight lasted 3 days and nights, with each side holding an advantage at some point, but one never fully achieving victory. Well, I view this as a scrimmage in sports where you're really competing against each other, but it's a bit more friendly and just a way to test yourselves. If I wanted to be super technical, I'd say the Whitebeard pirates looked a bit better here, as the Roger pirates should be the better and more mature crew. Seeing Shanks and Buggy glare at a young Blackbeard is a sight to behold, as this is the first time Shanks comes into contact with Blackbeard, and we know where this ultimately leads. The observation Buggy made about Blackbeard not being able to sleep is a very important one, and I was actually happy Buggy was the one to make it. Honestly, I would love it if Buggy at some point showed that he was actually a pretty formidable pirate. I clown him a lot, but he really did have Luffy in a position most pirates didn't early in his career. The more I see Shanks and Buggy though, and with this interaction with Blackbeard, I wonder if Blackbeard would ever kill Buggy as a way to antagonize Shanks, and it would be an amazing callback to this moment for the readers, of course, but let's hope that's not what happens. One Piece needs Buggy. In regards to Blackbeard's insomnia though, stay tuned, much more to come, but I'll say this: Teach not needing sleep could play into fights that actually last days, as that would not be something he would need. This dude keeps getting scarier and scarier. The meeting with Roger, Whitebeard, and Oden was great to see, but it made me think. First, why wasn't Rayleigh involved? Second, did Roger have an idea that Wano was connected to the Kozuki, so meeting Whitebeard and Oden was for the sole purpose of sniping Oden for his cause? Granted, their meeting was happenstance, but Roger seems to be very cunning and an amazing adventurer, so I would not put it past him. Roger tells Whitebeard and Oden of the final island of the log pose, Lodestar, and that after leaving there, they realized there was one more island. Quick tangent, as much as Oda parallels Luffy and Roger, they have noticeable differences. In Luffy's journey, he has the people around him to make up for his deficiencies, but in this scenario, Roger is very aware of the map, the log pose, the history, and the poneglyphs. Luffy only knows the bare minimum, and I'm still not sure if he can read. What Roger says about his pirate crew and wanting to be something, he doesn't say what it is, but I interpret it to be Pirate King, as Whitebeard asks if he was a little boy with his thinking. Maybe it isn't as polished as Pirate King, but perhaps the Sea King? We'll see what happens. Roger asking to borrow Oden can be viewed as disrespectful, but he had so much ambition he couldn't help himself. Oden himself knew that this was his opportunity to find his answers to his urges and various questions about his own country. He knew he had to go. I mentioned Skopagaban in the review, but quickly here, Oda did characterize him by not only confirming that he's the third strongest at least on the crew, but showing that he was protective of not only Roger's reputation and status, but also the Roger pirates. It seems like he was somewhat the mouthpiece of the crew, which is interesting considering we haven't heard from him till now, but also the fact that Oda decided to highlight him so much this chapter. I think we see him very soon. He even removed Rayleigh from the story for most of it to let Scopper have his moments, or that's how I interpreted it. I loved Whitebeard acknowledging Oden as his brother and then forcing his crew to give back the cargo to make sure Oden and his family didn't starve. As much as he hated Oden joining Roger, he loved Oden. So to my foreshadow about Whitebeard and Roger and talking about them as great men. In the Viz translations, Oden said that Whitebeard was a great man, but Roger too was off the charts and that he was a lucky fellow. This changes things. Not for me, but for a lot of people. You can't live in your headcanon anymore. To me, this means that they were both great men in their own right and that Oden was very lucky to meet them. Individuals tried to use this as a knock against Whitebeard due to his ideals, but one thing he did was remain consistent and loyal to his family. His greatness should never be questioned. I believe Roger and Whitebeard had great things about each of them, and then one day we'll take the time to compare, but maybe once we find out more about Roger. We know that Oden, after being with Roger, then vowed to fulfill his dream of opening Wano. I believe that through Roger, Oden then realized that he had seen what he wanted to and gotten his answer, so therefore he was determined to have others from Wano experience the same thing he did. Different cultures, lifestyles, food, etc. Because he said to Whitebeard it would be 1 year and then he would return to his crew. He didn't do that. It seems like he went right back to Wano. So I believe Oden went back to Wano with his family, an adventure inspired by the two great men he had met, and that led to the events that happened in Wano. Because when Oden went back to Wano, he's a completely different person. I gotta say though, seeing Roger and Whitebeard in the same chapter as a One Piece fan is pure joy. So even though I would have liked to see a full fight between the two, I wholeheartedly really love this chapter. Let's see if it makes it in when I do my chapters of the decade. But yeah guys, that's it for me. One Piece chapter 966 will go down in the books as one of the best chapters of all time in One Piece. It's always great seeing Whitebeard and Roger, and Oden definitely really adds to it as well. And Rayleigh's copper, it's all great stuff. Shanks, Buggy, Blackbeard, amazing chapter. Guys, let me know your thoughts. What did you think about the chapter? Has it changed based on the Viz translations? Let me know below. Like the video if you did, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.Ace. Thank you guys so much for your support. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Something quickly I wanted to touch on before we ended this was the fact that we saw Whitebeard, and people were asking, do you think Whitebeard had his devil fruit at this time? I think it would make the most sense if he did. This isn't a definitive thing, but I think it's pretty telling, and Oda chose this aesthetic for a reason. After Whitebeard got upset at Roger trying to snipe Oden away from him, they said Pops was angry, and it shows that the seas were tilting around the island. We've never seen that happen from just Conqueror's Haki. We've seen different amazing things happen from Conquerors, but never the seas tilting. And we saw the seas tilting in Marineford when Whitebeard was using his devil fruit. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Whitebeard has his devil fruit. Also, the moments of Rayleigh and Roger holding babies, Rayleigh says it reminds him of the old days, and Roger says he hasn't spent the time with a baby in ages. People are saying it could be Roger has another baby, or does Rayleigh have younger sisters, etc. I feel like that's reading too much into it. Maybe Roger interacted with babies in the past. Maybe Rayleigh does have small sisters or small siblings, or maybe somebody on the crew, maybe they had kids or something, but I don't know if this automatically means that Roger has another child. I think it's interesting that Roger, while holding this kid here, never had the opportunity to hold Ace this way. So I think that's what Oda was pulling on for us. Roger holding a baby that's not Ace, to kind of make us think about that. So